welcome to another edition of Discover Tinley for December. Thanks for watching the show. My name is Ron Centenni. I'll be your host tonight. And for those of you who haven't watched us before, we come through the services of the Community Resources Commission in Tinley Park, a group of volunteers who help out with a variety of programs in town, such as welcoming Santa into town coming up pretty soon, or in case you're seeing this at the end of the month, you've already seen Santa come into town. We also do Discover Tinley. We work with the Youth in Government and the Scholarship Program. So the Community Resources Commission does quite a few volunteer projects in town. If you know of anybody in town that we should highlight on our program, we try to highlight people and organizations in Tinley Park that make our town really a great place in which to live. So if you know anybody or know any organization, drop us a note in care to the Community Resources Commission of Tinley Park and the Village Hall and let us know. We're glad to put them on the air. Coming up, it's hard to believe that December is already here. The winter time is coming upon us, whether we like it or not. Hopefully we have a better winter than we had last year. But we thought tonight we'd give us a program concerning something that affects all of us in town that we use to get around. That's our streets. We have a fantastic streets department in Tinley Park. So tonight our guest is going to be Mary Dobyns, who's the street foreman of Tinley Park. Welcome to Discover Tinley.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, Tinley, the street department. You've got a lot of streets in town here, don't you? How many miles of streets do we have? You know,
we have about 350 lane miles in Tinley that we take care of. Now you've got to realize that a lot of the streets in Tinley are not our responsibility. So for snow removal, Harlem Avenue is a state road. Okay. 80th Avenue is a county road. I mean, certain people will be calling Public Works, my street isn't clean, or Harlem Avenue looks bad. That is not our responsibility.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's a difference between street road, village roads, and county roads, and state, the whole variety of roads in Tinley Park we have to take care of.
There's certain places that are private roads too. For instance, I live in the Pines, and the road I live on is maintained by the association. It's not even a public right-of-way.
Well, let's talk about what the street department takes care of. What kind of responsibilities? You have a lot. So briefly, what kind of responsibilities do you guys take care of?
Well, we take care of the right-of-ways and pretty much anything in the right-of-ways, along with the residents. Say tree trimming, tree removal in the parkways we do. We maintain the storm sewers on the roadways and even in the backyards, so everybody's yards can drain. We do sidewalk maintenance. We've replaced about 20,000 square feet of sidewalk this year. Wow. Through our sidewalk replacement program. We inspect the sidewalks. We mow certain areas in town, the detention ponds, the retention areas, certain like Oak Park Avenue, the medians there we mow. We hire certain areas out, like the Harlem Avenue medians are the responsibility of the village, and we get those maintained by an outside contractor. Street signs, stop signs are all done through the street department. Retention pond maintenance, checking out and making sure everything's going to flow okay when we get that 3 inches of snow in an hour.
That's those big ponds that we see that retain water in the big storms that occur throughout the village here. That's why they're there. And so you guys have to mow those lawns, don't you?
We have to mow those. Some are detention. Detention and retention. Some hold the water all the time, but you still have to manicure those around the edges because the residents don't want to have weeds growing next to their houses. But we make sure they flow, there's no sediment or anything that will block.
Okay. Now in the fall, I know we were talking about some things you take care of in the fall with the leaves coming down. What do you have to watch out? What do people have to watch out for with all these leaves coming down the street in the fall?
Well, the storm sewers that are in the roadways, that's why we advise residents not to rake their leaves out in the street, even though we do have sweepers going. We go through every area probably about 5 times a year at least. But right now is crucial. We appreciate all the residents this past Thursday and Friday that came out and were cleaning the storm sewers. That helps us out. We did have crews out, though, this past Friday going through the various sites in town.
Wow. So we watch the leaves out in the street there. And then trees, you take care of the trees in the streets program too? Is that part of your responsibilities?
That is our responsibility. We do basically pruning for clearance, because when the snow plows come down, if they're hanging over, they'll knock off the mirrors and things like that, as well as garbage trucks and emergency vehicles. You want to be able to let the fire engines go down the streets without hitting the branches.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
We do offer a replacement program. And we've been planting, I think we'll be planting over 200 trees this year.
Wow, holy cow. Snow's coming up, the winter time's coming up. What kind of challenges do we have in our streets program for the snow in town and the streets, and how do you take care of all that?
Well, we have 12 routes. We have like 17 pieces of big snowplow trucks that will maintain this. Pretty much the challenges are getting everybody out in time, keeping the cars off the streets, especially during the holidays. It'd be nice if everybody, if you're going to have a party, you keep your cars on one side. It makes the vehicles easier to go down and keep the streets clear. Mailboxes, now is a good time for everybody to take a look at their mailbox. Make sure it's structurally sound, so the snow doesn't do the damage. If we'll gladly, if a plow hits it, but if the snow hits it, that really isn't the village's responsibility to replace that.
So I never thought about that. So sometimes when you plow the snow, that snow hits that mailbox and that'll knock it off, even though the mailbox is not out in the street.
Exactly.
So be careful of the mailbox. I better check my mailbox. and you go. What time in the morning do you guys go out to even start snow plowing?
Well, it's not a predetermined time. We work real well with the police department. Myself and the other foreman, Jimmy Quinn, do the call-outs for the snow. And like if we're up and it's during normal hours, we'll do the call out.
Oh, okay.
But the police will call us and say, hey, Mary, the streets are getting pretty bad. Then I'll call out the rest of the crew.
So the police notify you first as to what the conditions are?
Yeah, well, they have people traveling.
Right.
It keeps us from, and then usually the foreman will go out and maybe if it doesn't look that bad, we'll go out and test drive the area to make sure it really warrants somebody getting out.
Okay, okay. And then talk about how you do that, the process you go about getting the streets clean. You have 2 passes, you said, that you guys do, or how do you do that?
Like I said, the village is divided into 12 areas. And first, everybody 2 passes their area. And then they'll come back and...
Which means, when you say 2 passes, what does that mean now?
That means they'll go down the road one way and come back the other.
Get the middle of the road cleared away. Okay.
And then they'll come back and usually curb it. So if you can wait to possibly clean your driveway, everybody complains like they're putting snow back up in my driveway. I just got my driveway cleared out. But if you wait until they come back for those last 2 outside curb passes, they'd be better off. We also would appreciate people when they do remove the snow from from their driveways that they don't put it back into the street, because if a plow truck comes back in, they're just going to put it back in the driveway. Exactly.
Oh, geez. Wow. Well, yeah, some people clear the driveway in the morning before the plow gets a chance that second go around, so they may end up with snow by their curb. So if you want your streets clean curb to curb, you might have to put up with some snow in the driveway a little bit. It's part of the deal. We do a lot of salting too now. How are we set up this winter for the salt process?
Well, we have a full salt dome to start with, and we're looking into other approaches though. So we will be doing some experimenting in town, not in high profile places. We haven't determined those sites yet. But we are going to try and experiment with less abrasive material that won't hurt, doesn't do any damage to the environment as much as the salt does.
Okay, so like cars and sometimes the grass and all that stuff there with all that salt coming on the vehicles and the lawns and things like that. We pretty well set up this winter for salt. I know last year there was a little question mark, but
No, this year it
pretty
came
well.
in, the salt bids came in cheaper, and I
Oh.
think we have a stockpile in. And our crews we had a turnover of people retiring, so it was a training process with the new people in the plow trucks, and I think this year it should be much better. After the horrendous winter we had last year,
right,
they got a
right.
lot of practice. So we should be setting pretty good. I mean, just as far as the amount of material to put on the roadways too, I think there were some adjustments that were made.
Wow. And some people have said, why don't we use something else besides salt? What's the reason why we stick with the salt and not use some other materials?
Well, right now, such as sand or something like that, that would clog the storm sewers, and we'd have to go out to all these areas. If we were, excuse me, if we were out 50 times last year, could you imagine how much salt or debris would be on the streets, and we'd have to be cleaning out of the storm sewers?
Sand or gravel, yeah, yeah.
And it could possibly plug up during the spring when we do get our rains.
All right, so there's a good reason why we don't use that other material, the solid material. And we have to put up with the salt, and I guess we have to get our cars washed once in a while in
yes.
the wintertime. We have a repaving program here in Tinley Park, I understand, to maintain the roads. How are you guys doing on that now? What's that all about?
Well, we have an index of about 89, which is very high in comparison to other communities. We have very few potholes. It's a hot in-place recycling that we do, and we resurfaced about 45 roads, and they do. Our engineering firm we hire a service that goes and we get this index to see what streets need to be done for next year. We also right now, some people might see on their roadways that we are doing crack sealing, where they're making little grooves in the road and then they're filling that in. Those are pre-existing cracks that they route out a little bit and then they fill with a tarry material. Because if they don't, the cracks in the roadway would, with the freeze and thaw cycle, that's what creates the potholes, and they get underneath the surface, and then that's what makes your big potholes that you see throughout in other areas.
So we take care of that ahead of time to
We're
prevent
doing
some
that
of kind of
right
stuff there.
now, and you can see that on certain different roadways throughout town.
How often would you do the repaving? How often would a street need to be repaved? And when we talk about repaving, can you go over what is that process that you use? Because it's a pretty sound process. Seems like a pretty environmentally sound process that they use to repave. They don't actually put a whole new coating over it, do they?
They recycle this.
Yeah.
They heat, they scarify it, and they drag the machine over and reuse the existing asphalt that they have. The life cycle is dependent on numerous things. If the drainage is good on the street, because if water sits there too long, that deteriorates a street, especially in the winter when we're talking the freeze and thaw cycle. I would say probably a good 10 years is,
Really? Okay.
yeah, at least, you know. And they have that all budgeted in. Our engineering firm, Robinson, does a real nice job with our pavement management program.
You know about how many miles a year you might do this repaving? How many streets you might have to do?
Well, we do, like I said, this past year we did 45, but I've noticed this year, because of the rough winter we had, the roads look a lot worse.
Oh.
So they might try and get more done next year, or it'll be in line to do for next year.
Wow.
Sometimes we can just go ahead and we'll do some patching, and we'll do that in-house. The street department can patch certain roads that look pretty bad, that have the potholes existing and won't last through the winter, so we'll do that in the street department.
Okay. And your job as foreman, briefly, what is your job as a foreman? What's your responsibilities then?
Well, my responsibilities is like with snow events to coordinate and make sure we cover all our bases there, as well as rain events or storms. We plan for sidewalk replacement, tree replacement. We have drainage issues that we contend with also. So there's a lot of one-on-one contact with residents and trying to explain to them what they can do as opposed to that the village is always responsible for everything.
Okay.
That sometimes it's your responsibility to take care of certain things with the drainage and things of that nature.
Well, you cover a big area. I mean, it's a lot of area to cover in town here, and your job is quite extensive. What you all do, so it's tremendous on the job you do. We have tremendous streets in town here, so it's to the thanks to all you and your employees and the whole streets department as to how well we take care of things.
Well, a lot of thanks goes to the other departments that we have, because when we do have snow events, we take on the other department staffing, and so that puts them short on work that they have to do. The water department contributes, the fleet and facility, and the ladies in the public works office are great with handling residential calls, because we get bombarded anytime there's any snow events or rain events. They help buffer what we do.
Right. Well, it's tremendous what you do. Thanks for coming on Discover Tinley, and I think you learned a little bit more about how extensive the street program is in Tinley Park. And thanks for keeping our streets in good shape.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right. The Streets Department in Tinley Park, a tremendous service in town here. Hopefully everybody will help out taking care of their part of the deal, but we have to thank our Streets Department for doing a well-deserved creditable program. Well, our very special guest, our second guest on today, is come to us on a special occasions coming up this month. You know, it's December, Christmas is coming around, and we always have that special visitor that comes to visit Tinley Park on December 25th, Santa Claus. And usually, have been very kind in the last few years. His wife, Mrs. Santa Claus, comes to visit us. We have her with us tonight. Mrs. Santa Claus, thanks for coming and welcome to Discover Tinley.
Well, thank you for inviting me again, and I always enjoy coming to Tinley Park. It's usually a little bit nicer weather than what we have at the North Pole, so I get to enjoy a little bit of a warmer climate for a few days before I have to go back to the snow and ice.
Gets pretty cold up there this time of year?
Yes,
Oh,
very,
geez.
very cold. Most of our activities are indoors, though, because we're getting ready for Christmas, so it's not that bad.
Okay.
The only time we are really out of doors is to feed the reindeer or to maybe go from one building to the other where they're transporting toys and things. But I usually stay in the kitchen where it's nice and warm.
You're smart. That's very well. Santa needs you there in the
Yes.
kitchen to help out there. Well, a couple of things now. We've been very fortunate. This year I asked a very special group of young kids from Mrs. Hennigan's first grade class to ask questions for Mrs. Claus. They're very curious about some things going on. So I thought we'd ask you these questions tonight and see what really happens up in the North Pole there. Like, for instance, how do the reindeer fly? How do they get around so easily?
There's a special grain that is grown only in the North Pole. And it has something to do with the ice and the snow that go into this. Sometimes you'll see some if they're out in the front yard, because a lot of preschools will get this grain and they fix it and they throw it out so the reindeer can have that when they come and continue flying. And that is what causes the magic power for them to fly when they need to.
Wow, that's pretty special. So up in the North Pole, that's it, huh?
That's it.
Wow.
That's it.
Now the elves, you've got quite a few elves up there. What do they usually like to eat?
Oh, the elves, well, there are a lot of things they don't like to eat.
No, of course.
Anything that's good for them. But they love their cookies and they love their different sweets. But I sneak in carrot cake and I sneak in zucchini bread and things like that, so that I know they are getting their vegetables at least.
Then you should get vegetables. And
Yes.
you want the kids to
Yes.
get their vegetables too. That's important to elves and young kids. right?
Everybody, it's important too.
Eat their vegetables.
But with them, it has to be a little sneaky because
Okay.
they're kind of special and they're kind of sneaky on their own. They have their little pranks and things that they do.
Of course. That's why they're elves.
Yes.
Now, speaking of cookies, does Santa have a favorite cookie?
Yes, any kind. He will eat any kind of cookie, and every year people put out new menus and new that they've seen for cookies or recipes, and every year he comes home with a new one he wants to try, or he's had that. He says, "Now, can you please find out how to make this?" So if the kids, when they send their letters to Santa, if they know their mom's secret cookie recipes, if they would include it for me, that would help a lot, because then I would be able to make them the way that those people, mothers, made them for him.
Beautiful.
And this is very special.
So Santa likes to try different kinds of cookies.
Yes,
He's very
he does.
open to that, huh?
Yes, he does. He has nothing that he's allergic to, nothing that doesn't taste good to him. So any kind of cookie that they want to give him, whether it's a store-bought or a homemade, he just loves them. And sometimes, if there's a lot of cookies left, he'll bring some home for me to try.
Wow.
So I really appreciate that.
Good. So kids, get the recipes out. Help Mrs. Claus help with Santa out there. Now you said it gets cold up in the North Pole.
Extremely cold.
Does Santa have to wear long underwear?
He wears long underwear similar to what people wear here in cold weather, but he has special coats, and his big coat that he wears on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, and that has a heavy furry lining to it, and that really keeps him warm while he's flying. But yes, he does have to wear long underwear. Everyone does, really.
okay.
It's important.
Good. Keep warm.
And real warm socks.
Oh, is that right?
Very
You got-
warm socks, because
Oh.
your feet get very cold.
Oh, wow. Now, does he get holes in his socks? Does
Yes, he does.
Oh,
Just
no.
like everybody else. He gets holes in his socks. But we're lucky we have some elves out there that are terrific at knitting, so they're always making him new socks, so I don't have to mend the holes.
Ooh.
So that's another good thing. Mrs. Claus has a break at that. Yes.
You need a few breaks, don't you?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
because
wow.
he always finds something else for me to do.
Oh, is that right?
There's always something he needs help with. So
Okay.
and that's what I'm there for.
Now, you have to cook his meals, too. What kind of food does he really like? Besides the cookies, what
Oh,
else
we
does he
make,
like to eat?
I make stews. I
okay.
make chicken. We make every kind of meat and vegetable that's available. And he eats well, as you can tell.
Yes.
You can tell. He does eat well. He tries to stay healthy with the foods he eats. So everyone here knows what they should be, and if they do the same, then maybe they can be around as long as Santa has.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got to keep an eye on Santa's food and make sure he eats well, because he probably wouldn't eat that well if he had the choice.
Well, when he's busy in the shop or he's at his desk, I always make sure I bring a little something in. If he's sitting at his desk checking lists and doing things like this, I usually try to put a little extra something on his desk with some hot cocoa or with some warm apple juice and cider, just to keep his being well. That's important.
Wow. Now, when he's all done with doing this flying around, does he have to take a long rest when he gets home? He has to work pretty hard, it sounds like.
Well, when he gets home Christmas morning,
Yeah.
I normally have a really nice breakfast waiting for him. And then he'll go in and he'll take a nap for a while. And he'll get up and he'll just relax and reflect on what he did the night before and tell me some special stories that came up while he was gone. And then he'll sleep hours. But
Okay.
for 3 or 4 days, well, for the week between Christmas and New Year's, Santa does no work. He just relaxes and rests and naps when he feels like it. But then he has to start immediately right after New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. There is so much to do for the following year.
So he starts soon to get ready for everything?
Yes.
Wow.
Because that's when he has to organize the elves and decide what kind of toys the children will want the next year and go into the process of planning and building.
Now, Santa likes to get letters from kids. What does he want to hear from kids in the letters he gets?
Basically, he just wants to hear that they're doing well and being polite and that with their families. He loves to hear special stories if somebody did something really good for them or to them at school or outside of school. It's nice to have a letter from a child that's telling about someone else who is good, not just themselves.
Wow.
And this is why we try to promote that children always be good to each other. And not just for the rewards you can get, but just because it is the spirit of Santa Claus to be good and be nice to people.
Wow. And also to the parents too, and the
Oh,
family.
especially
and
the parents.
Grandparents too.
Rudeness and being impolite is just not what Santa knew his whole life and likes to see in children now. And there is quite a bit of that occurring.
Oh,
And he would like to see that stop.
So the better they are, they probably might get another gift or two if they're really well behaved. That
Yes.
might help out a little bit.
Santa does not feel there is a bad child. Santa feels there are children that need to try harder. And that's it.
Okay, so try hard, try harder.
Try harder.
Santa's got a pretty red nose. Is that from the cold weather?
From the
or-
cold, if you
Oh,
notice,
geez.
his cheeks are all rosy
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
The nose is a little brighter because it sticks out further.
Okay.
But his cheeks are real rosy too from the cold weather and the wind, especially the wind. It's all like in the summer down here, people get sunburned. Up there, we get windburn, and that's why his nose and his cheeks are so rosy.
Wow. And speaking of red noses, now Rudolph is kind of the. Why is his nose so red and glowing all the time?
It's hard to say because just like some puppy dogs have different shaped faces and noses than others, and some cats look differently, and other animals you may have 5 puppies that are black and 1 that's white. It is something nature has done.
Okay.
And we do not know why. We just know that it made him special and made him want to become a leader.
Wow. Okay.
And this is important.
Wow. And the other reindeer, are they starting to treat him a little bit nicer now?
Yes, they still play tricks on him, and they all have their little things that they do, but they're a family.
Okay.
They're a family, and they realize that Rudolph is part of their family, and they love him, and they treat him as they do the rest.
Wow.
And then sometimes they're a little envious because they know he's a little special. Not that he thinks he is, but
Okay.
he is a little
A little
special.
special. Now, one last question that somebody asked. Now, does Santa ever get stuck in the chimneys?
Santa's secret power that even I do not know is to be able to stand at the top of a chimney and go down quickly like a bullet. When he's ready to go up, he stands in the chimney and he touches his nose and he magically flies up as fast as possible because he has so many trips to make. So Santa will never be stuck in a chimney.
Beautiful.
No matter how many cookies he eats, Santa will never be stuck in a chimney.
Okay, thank you. Let's hope he never gets stuck in there. Well, thank you again for coming to Tinley Park. It's always kind of great to have you come around in Santa.
Well, I really enjoy coming. I will be back with Santa. I'll be arriving a day earlier than he, but I will be back with Santa when we have, and we will be having our visit with all of the children in town, and then we will be heading back to go back to work again.
Wow, well, enjoy your trip.
Thank you.
Say hello to Santa for all of us.
I
And,
will do that.
have a good time.
And you all have a very nice Christmas and a very peaceful Christmas. And let's all wish well for everyone in the world.
Thank you. Well, we'd say thank you again to Mrs. Claus for coming to see us again, and hopefully everybody will enjoy a happy holiday season and a good Christmas. Be looking for us next month. Our very special guest next month will be our usual Talk with the Mayor. The Mayor, Zabraki, will give us a State of the Village. See you next month.
I'll be arriving a day earlier than he, but I will be back with Santa when we have, and we will be having our visit with all of the children in town, and then we will be heading back to go back to work again.
Wow, well, enjoy your trip.
Thank you.
Say hello to Santa for all of us. And,
I will do that.
Have a good time.
And you all have a very nice Christmas and a very peaceful Christmas. And let's all wish well for everyone in the world.
Thank you. Well, I would say thank you again to Mrs. Claus for coming to see us again, and hopefully everybody will enjoy a happy holiday season and a good Christmas. Be looking for us next month. Our very special guest next month will be our usual Talk with the Mayor. The Mayor, Zabraki, will give us a State of the Village. See you next month.